It's Mikey Arugula. And most of you guys know that I've been collecting Beatle memorabilia for 60 years. And what I try and do is find other people like myself that have a passion and a great amount of stories to tell about the Beatles. And what I've done today is I found somebody that I think is got the most unbelievable stories about the Beatles. A matter of fact, not only does he have good stories, he's just come out with a book. I'm trying to get rid of some of the gain on the feedback here. Anyway, I want to introduce everybody to Richard Adler. Now, I just want to give you a summary before Richard Adler talks. Now, Mikey talks a lot, but I'm going to let Richard do all the talking today, except I have a lot of questions for him. Richard wrote this incredible book. It's called My Rock and Roll Fantasy. All right. And Richard is a guy that not only worked for the Beatles, he saw the Beatles, all right, at Forest Hills twice, 2 Shea stadiums, right? And what am I missing, Richard? There's one more.
Carnegie Hall.
The first one.
Of course.
The first one. Now, Richard, what I want to do is I want to ask you my way. I want you to start out with how you met John and Paul in Central Park. Okay?
Well, started off, it was a beautiful day, and I was
a little louder.
Started off, it was a beautiful day, and I was a senior in high school, and I decided I'm going to cut school and go down to Central Park and hang out. So I took the subway down to Central Park, walked through Central Park to the Bethesda fountain, and when I got there, I saw 2 guys sitting on the fountain that just looked familiar, you know, but I couldn't place them because, you know, who knows who's so many people in Central Park at the time. But I kept looking at them and they looked familiar. And I said, that can't be John Lennon and Paul McCartney. I said, and I looked, and damn if it wasn't. So I've been thinking about this thing that I wanted to talk to them about, but I never had the opportunity. So I just walked over to them and I said, you're John Lennon and Paul McCartney. What are you guys doing here? And they said, it's a beautiful day. We're hanging out. You know, we've been here for a while, and you're the first person that's come over and talked to us. And I said, I got an idea for you guys. You know, I didn't want to be like, you know, oh, I think you're the greatest. You know, I didn't want to give them all the fanboy stuff, you know. But I said, I have an idea for you. I have a way for you to make money on your movie Magical Mystery Tour. And we talked about taking it to college campuses. I said, you've got a captive audience on these college campuses. They'd love to have the Beatles movie come to their campus. I said, you find a student organization that can get a facility for free to raise money for their organization. And we get a radio station to come in and provide the promotion. And there, and you guys make a lot of money. And they said
that probably perked up Paul McCartney's ears, right?
Well, Paul McCartney said, when can you start? I said, start what? He says, come work for us. You book the colleges. He wrote down on a piece of paper a phone number, and he said, call this number. He'll be expecting your call. There was Nat Weiss, and I called Nat up, and Nat invited me to dinner. And as they say, the rest is history.
Now, first of all, everybody, I want you to know, Richard was like 18 years old, correct?
Yeah. Senior in high school, yes.
And also to give you the background, this is the date that the Beatles came to New York to officially, I believe, announce Apple. The full
Just
name
John
came
and
out.
Paul. Just John and Paul.
John and Paul. And they were actually on the Johnny Carson show, and Johnny wasn't there. But a lot of the fans out there have seen that with Joe Garagiola, I believe, where the Beatles were on Johnny Carson. In those days, Johnny Carson was actually filmed in New York City. And then he moved to the LA later. So that's the background of how Richard got into and employed. Hey, by the way, I'm an accountant. I'm always interested. When they hired you, right? Did you become an employee?
No, I was a contractor.
Okay. And they wrote you a check or they gave you cash? How did it work? You don't remember?
Nat Weiss wrote me a check. Yeah.
Okay. So you have any, remember, I'm a collectible guy. Do you have any pay stubs or anything like paperwork from like when you were working for them?
Nah. It was the handwritten check, and I brought it to the bank and got my money, you know?
Right, right. And how long did you officially work for the Beatles?
You know, it was an on and off thing. It was like I was going to college, and it was probably about 2.5 years.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now, all this stuff that he's going to be telling you today, once again, is in his new book. And by the way, I reached out to Richard over a year ago. He goes, you know what? I'm working on this book. Let's wait a year. I mean, not a year. He didn't say a year, but he said, listen, let's wait till my book is ready. Because I then I'll have like, I'll be more into like, you know, telling these stories again, and they'll be like, it'll tie in. So he just released this book called My Rock and Roll Fantasy. Everything you're going to hear today is in this book. Boy, I'm making a lot of noise. You hear that noise? I hear like echoing or something. I got to move this. But anyway, what I wanted to ask you about was that you worked them for a few years, but in the book you said John would just call you up and say, hey, could you take pictures at this concert I'm going to be doing in Madison Square Garden?
Yeah.
There was no cell phones. How did he call you?
My house.
He called you at your house.
Yeah.
John Lennon just calls your house.
Yeah, exactly. He just called me up and said, Rich, can you do this for me? And I said, sure. And he only gave passes out to 3 photographers, and I was one of them. And
wow.
My pictures that I took that day ended up in Rock Magazine.
Yeah, matter of fact, I'm going to bring up one of these pictures that you did. It's a famous picture. Let me bring it up. There you go. There's the picture. One of the pictures you did, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and I also want to show the picture of you with Nat Weiss.
Okay.
Let me just remove this one. Look what this man looked like. Okay. Why don't you tell him quickly about the door that we're looking at? Hold on, Richard, I lost you. Hold on.
Yeah.
Richard, I lost you. I'm sorry for a minute. Hey, I took you off.
Okay.
Yeah, Richard, tell him about this picture.
Yeah. So back when John and Paul stayed in Nat's apartment, back in 1968, when they were in New York, Nat gave them his apartment, and he moved out to the St. Regis Hotel. And when they left, they signed the door. You can see, like, it's top part, it says Nathaniel certainly is, love Paul McCartney and John Lennon. Okay. Then over the course of time, other artists came in and they signed his door. But there's also George Harrison signed it as well. And he wrote, I can't see it here, but he wrote to Nat, the King of Pho.
Right.
And I don't know
most
if you
people
know,
don't know what that is.
most people don't know who the King of Pho was. Yeah.
Right. But he was the fucking king, right?
No, the Fuck King.
The fuck king. That's right. Right.
It was Brute Force was the name of the artist that recorded this record called the King of Pho, and it was George Harrison who really loved the record, and I think Apple made just a few copies of it because they couldn't get EMI to distribute it. So they made a few copies and gave it out to their friends.
Yeah. One other story I remember from the book about the Nat Weiss apartment, which I never knew. Once again, if you're a Beatle person, you're going to learn things you never knew about. So the Christmas record with Tiny Tim on it, okay? From what I remember, Tiny Tim came to Nat Weiss's apartment to visit George.
Well, nobody told George or Tiny Tim that they didn't tell Tiny Tim that George was going to be there, and they didn't tell George that Tiny Tim was coming. So what happened was, we all knew that Tiny Tim was coming, and George loved to play ukulele, and of course Tiny Tim was a ukulele player. So when Tiny Tim came and rang the bell, everybody hid in the bedroom and left George there by himself.
Richard, but you were there too?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, that's sick. That's sick. You see, Richard, I'm getting excited because you are part of the witnessing to this whole event.
That's right.
Yeah.
So George opens the door when the door rings because there's nobody else around to open the door. And the two of them are dumbfounded when they see each other. And he invites them in, and they ended up playing ukuleles together. Tiny Tim did
recorded it. Someone recorded it.
They recorded it. Yeah, Tiny Tim did Tiptoe through the Tulips, and then they did Nowhere Man.
Really?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. See that Nowhere Man. See that you didn't. I don't think you mentioned that in the book, did you? You did? I lost your sound, man.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It was in the book.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember that, but that's unbelievable. So what I told Richard is that there's things in his life that are Mikey Arugula's life. And then there's things in his life that I wish were Mikey Arugula's life. In other words, while his book is called My Rock and Roll Fantasy, I say that his book really is more like growing up in the 60s. In other words, I don't know what the name should be, but Richard and Mikey Arugula are a product of the 60s. In fact, Richard is a little older than me, okay? I'm 70, Richard is 75. He puts his date of birth in the book, so like I'm not telling you something that he doesn't want you to know, all right? He was a little older than me, so he was there to experience things that I was a little too young to like be willing to take a subway to go down to the plaza. Okay. So what we're going to do now, because we only have so much time to annoy Richard. Okay. Is that let's go back in time now, Richard, to the beginning. Okay.
Yes.
If you are a 60s, I would say you're a 60s legacy. Okay. You have the stories and the history of growing up with not just the Beatles. Okay.
Nope.
You're going to find out what else you did. But,
yeah.
You started out in Brooklyn, like many kids and their parents in the New York area. Okay. And you have the baseball card experience. Tell them about the beginning, where you moved, where you ended up, okay, and that whole spit.
Yeah, well, as you said, we started in Montgomery Street in Brooklyn for my first, 8 years of my life. And I went through first grade in Brooklyn, and then my parents moved out to Bethpage, Long Island, and we stayed there about 3 years. And finally moved to Forest Hills. And Forest Hills was just an amazing place to live because it was like a melting pot of music. It was like so many musicians living in Forest Hills at the time, and a lot of them became famous. And Forest Hills is Forest Hills High School had Simon and Garfunkel went to Forest Hills High School, and they performed in Forest Hills High School as Tom and Jerry. And the Ramones went to Forest Hills High School.
And the Ramones were your friends.
Yeah, we grew up together.
A matter of fact, I want to tell everybody this. Once again, I learned this in the book. If it wasn't for Richard, the way I read it, they wouldn't have been called the Ramones. Because
that's not true.
Well, wait a minute. I thought it was because you got into the Beatles.
No, if it wasn't for me. Oh, well, okay. Johnny hated the Beatles. Okay. And I was in a band with Johnny Ramone and Tommy Ramone. And Tommy and I loved the Beatles, and we played Beatles songs together in 1964 before we formed our first band. And our first band was the Tiger Five. And that lasted about 2 years. And then it kind of morphed into the Tangerine Puppets. And the Tangerine Puppets, we brought in Johnny, his name was John Cummings at the time. And we brought Johnny in on bass. And John was a very tough customer. So he ruled the band with an iron fist. And one rule he had was no Beatles songs because he was a Rolling Stones fan. And he, as a Rolling Stone fan, he had to hate the Beatles. So Johnny went through years of hating the Beatles. But somehow around Sgt. Pepper, things changed for John, and he became a Beatles fan. So it wasn't until that time that, he hated the Beatles so much that when we were at Shea Stadium, you want me to tell that story?
Stick to this first.
Okay.
About the name, and then we're going to go back to all the concerts.
Okay. So Johnny became a Beatle fan, and because of the fact that Paul named himself Paul Ramone when they were on tour in Scotland, they used that name to call themselves the Ramones. But Tommy would never have been in the band if it wasn't for me.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Okay.
Life is all connections. It's all connected. All right.
Well, yeah, I was Buzzy Linhart's road manager, and I hired Tommy to be our sound man. So Tommy was on the road with us for about 6 months in 1974. And we had a falling out one day. The hydraulic lift on the truck broke. And we had a B3 Hammond organ, which was huge and heavy.
Yeah.
And, it was on wheels, but, when you had a hydraulic lift, it was easy to bring it up and down on the truck. But we had to lift it now off the truck, and we needed 4 guys to do it. And I asked Tommy to help us, and he said, no, I'm not going to risk my fingers by, lifting heavy equipment. I said, but it's your job, man. You got to help out. He said, I'm the sound man, and I only do the sound. And I said, no, you're sound man / roadie. Anyway, I told him if he can't help us, then he needed to leave. So he left, and he went home. And when he got home, he ended up getting together with Johnny, and they were forming a band, and Tommy was going to be their manager. So they needed a drummer. They were auditioning drummers, and came in. Tommy would show them how to play, their type of music. So they finally decided they couldn't find a drummer that can do what Tommy can do. So they said, Tommy, why don't you just be our drummer? So Tommy became the drummer. And Tommy was my guitar player in the Tangerine Puppets, and Johnny was my bass player in the Tangerine Puppets. Tommy became the drummer. Johnny became the guitar player. And the reason Johnny knew how to play guitar is because I taught him.
It's amazing, man.
I gave him lessons every week. And the one thing he couldn't do upstrokes on the guitar. He can only do downstrokes. And every time he tried to do an upstroke, he would miss the strings. So I said to him, for now, just do downstrokes. Wouldn't you know it? That became his signature on guitar, that he only did downstrokes.
Right. Yeah.
And
See, so when I said to you, Richard, that you were responsible for the Ramones, you just confirmed it. Okay.
Yeah.
That don't be so modest. Your book has 6 stories like that here. That somehow you were responsible. First of all, you already told us you were responsible for the distribution of Magical Mystery Tour. I have a 16 millimeter version in a package that I bought on eBay, and it's the original one. All right, and of Magical Mystery Tour. And now I understand the history of this. This thing, which was from Massachusetts, was probably distributed out to one of the colleges or something.
Yeah.
And then some professor or somebody held on to it. They never returned it. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. But that's a whole nother story. So
yeah, because that was the first thing that we had to do was create 16 millimeter copies of the movie.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, hold on. Keep talking, man. I'm gonna go pull it. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna pull this thing. I'm gonna show it to you. Hold on. Where is this thing? Yeah, I got it right here, man. I didn't even know the guy.
I wonder how that got loose. That's amazing.
Yeah. So this is to a guy. I have this on my show from Dr. Barry Brooks in Winthrop, Massachusetts. I don't know. It says special handling. And what were the years you were distributing it?
Like 69, 70, 71, something like that.
Yeah, because this guy ended up getting it in January of 72.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it was done, right? And
this
is the package it came in, like a shipping thing. And inside, if I opened it, it would be you see the film. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
All right. So look, let's go now to chronologically. Let's start with you saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, right? All right. And how did you know to watch them that night?
Well, in December 1963, I heard "I Want to Hold Your Hand." I was sleeping in the back of a car. We were going on a Boy Scout camping trip, and I heard this song come on, and it woke me right up. And it was something like nothing I've heard before. It was like so different than anything that was on the radio at the time. And I was like asking, but who is this? Nobody knew until the end. They finally say Beatles. And from that moment on, I became a Beatles fan. So think about it. It was only 6 weeks from the time the Beatles first came out in the United States with their record till they were on Ed Sullivan's show.
Yeah.
But there was so much information that came out on the Beatles in that 6-week period that it's never happened since. That much information came out. Every disc jockey in New York was just constantly talking about the Beatles and what you knew what they ate for breakfast. You know what I mean?
Right.
So of course they were announcing when the Beatles boarded the plane to come to New York City. They were announcing the flight, right? Like it was Santa Claus coming from the North Pole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're only 3 hours away. Now they're 2 hours away. They're going to be landing in an hour. And so a lot of kids went to the airport. There were thousands of kids at the airport waiting for the Beatles to arrive.
Right.
So that's all they talked about on the radio. Of course they would saying you got to watch the Ed Sullivan Show because it's going to be incredible. So everybody knew the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. Not only did everybody know, but 73 million people watched it.
Right.
That was a record at the time.
Yeah.
For any one TV show.
What
so much viewership.
What you say in your book, which of course I repeat all the time to people, is that if you wanted to see the Beatles, you better see it now because there's no repeating. Okay, there's no recording of it to replay. You're not going to get a rebroadcast. There's no on demand like what we're doing right now.
Right,
you could not do then.
Okay,
we're recording this, and people will be able to watch it at their convenience as much as they want. So there were 3 stations in New York primarily, 2, 4, and 7. You had 5 and 11 also. Okay,
yes.
that was it. And the world was black and white. Yeah. And the radio was in New York was primarily WMCA 570, 77 WABC, and 1010 Wins, which was Murray the K.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
So you heard about the Beatles, you watched them, and what gave you the smarts to go down to the plaza?
Girls talking in school about going to see the Beatles. They were going to sneak into the Plaza Hotel. So I said, I bet there'll be a lot of girls there. Right? So I figured, all right, I'll take the subway down with a friend of mine and we'll see how many girls we can pick up. And maybe we'll see the Beatles while we're down there, Crazy. And it was an exciting time. It was, the girls would start screaming every time the curtains would move on the 12th floor of the plaza. It was crazy.
Now, what happened? You went to see the Beatles come back from Washington, and that's how you got your tickets? I mean, how did that work?
So I met one of the girls there at the plaza, and we said, okay, we're going to go to Penn Station. And when the Beatles come back, we're going to go to Penn Station. We're going to meet up. We met up together, and we hung out at Penn Station waiting for the Beatles to come back. And she had tickets to go to Carnegie Hall, and she was going with a girlfriend. And she called her girlfriend to make arrangements because she was already in the city, and the girlfriend was sick and couldn't go.
Yeah. Now, once again, Richard, when you say you made a call, she made a call. That was in a paid
telephone booth. Yeah.
A telephone booth.
Yeah.
Well, you had to see. People don't always know this. There's no cell phones. You have to wait online, and you better have a dime on you.
You better, yeah.
And you better have a few dimes. You put the dime in the rotary machine. You go like this, and if you're lucky, you get the other person on the other phone. Now.
Right.
So she somehow went to a telephone booth, finds out her girlfriend is not going to go, And he loved you enough to say you want to go.
I was standing right next to her. I said, "You want to go?" I said, "Yeah, okay." So
And then you get in a telephone booth again to tell your parents,
yeah,
right?
yes,
That you're not coming home.
Right. And I told her that the girl's father was going to pick us up and drive us home.
Now the girl that you went to Carnegie Hall, did you ever keep in touch with her?
Yeah, we did. We kept in touch a couple of months.
Oh, a couple of months then.
Just a couple of months.
You don't know where she is now.
No idea.
Right.
No idea.
Right. By the way, just as a side one, Connie Deneuve, right?
Connie Deneuve. Yeah.
She died just this year.
Yeah.
At 91. Yeah. I don't know if we'll have time to go into that story.
Connie was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I loved
But yeah, but I'll introduce you to some people who just bought a lot of her estate and her contracts and her records and everything. Yeah. Listen, so you went to Carnegie Hall. And what do you want to tell us quickly about Carnegie Hall, the concert?
Well, the one thing that really struck me right from the beginning was it was my first concert ever. Okay. And there were seats on the stage. And a lot of kids sitting on the stage. And I said, wow, I didn't know that they had seats on the stage at concerts. I said, next concert I go to, I'm going to get a seat on the stage.
The Beatles weren't happy about that.
Not happy at all.
Right.
What happened was Sid Bernstein had so many requests from politicians and stars and, prominent people for their kids. He had no place to put them. So he put chairs on the stage so he can accommodate all these people that he couldn't accommodate in the theater.
Right.
And no, they weren't happy about it at all.
And by the way, everybody, which we might not be able to get into also, Richard worked with Sid Bernstein. Okay. They did many things together. Once again, this is in Richard's book. Unbelievable stories. So you went to the which show did you go to, by the way, at Carnegie Hall?
The early show.
The early show. So you when you got out of there, you must have been like buzzing. Okay.
It was actually an incredible situation for me because number one, it was my first show, and it was the Beatles.
Right.
And there were just so many screaming girls out of their mind, And the one thing that I was upset with was the fact that I couldn't hear them.
Even in Carnegie Hall, you really couldn't hear them?
No, because you had so many girls screaming in your ear, It was like if we were able to identify the song they were playing, that was good enough,
Right. Yeah. All right. So then let's transition to the next concert you go to and how you got to go.
This concert was Forest Hills Stadium, tennis stadium.
Right.
And it was in walking distance from my apartment. Well, what luck, right?
Yeah.
So my friends in my band, the Tiger Five, we all got together and we went to walked over to Forest Hill Stadium, and I had stood online with a couple of my friends to buy tickets, weeks before. And so I had the tickets, and we went to the stadium, and first night we went in and saw the show, and the show was delayed because the Beatles were late. They were supposed to they came by helicopter, which was unheard of. Nobody ever arrived at a concert in a helicopter. It was like the gods descending from heaven. You know what I mean?
So they came from the heliport near World's Fair, or no? Or they came from Manhattan? Or you don't know?
From Manhattan.
Okay.
But they the helicopter had trouble getting clearance to take off. And they were delayed by about an hour.
Wow. The
Yeah.
crowd must have gone crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Right. So,
You know,
so they landed. Where did they land? Outside the stadium in the back?
well, outside the stadium in the back, there are tennis courts.
Right.
All right. So what they did was they landed right in the tennis courts behind the stadium.
That's amazing.
And then, you know, and you're sitting there and you see this helicopter circling around the tennis stadium and landing right there, and they come right off the helicopter and right onto the stage.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then the next night you went again?
Yeah, well, the next night we didn't have tickets and it was sold out. And my friend Ira was there, and we were all hanging out with Ira. And Ira says, I know the guy who's taking tickets at the door. He says, give me $1 each.
Right.
And I'll go and give him some money and he's gonna let us in. So I said, all right, here's $1. And there must have been 6 of us, you know. And he takes the money and he gives it to him. He waves us on in, and we all go in.
And where'd you sit? Where were you standing or sitting?
We actually got to stand on the side in one of the portals, you know.
Yeah. And the first night, where were your seats?
It was on the court.
Right. Wow.
On the floor, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
So you had great seats.
Yeah.
Oh man, these little details. I'm a detailed guy. Now you don't have. You still don't have those tickets, right?
No.
Now,
No.
I know you told the story about how your mom threw out some things, but why'd you get rid of your tickets? Where'd they go?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Right.
You know, like I told you when I saw you, is that if everybody kept everything, nothing would be worth anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's because we all threw these things away that these things are now valuable.
Yeah. Quickly tell them about your father's job and how he got a favor from Topps.
Yeah. My dad worked for a corrugated box manufacturer, and Topps was one of their clients. And they had a problem and they needed something immediately, and they called my dad, and my dad made all the arrangements for them and made sure they got exactly what they needed when they needed it. And the guy was so appreciative. He said to him, listen, when you send your drivers down to drop off, you know, the corrugated boxes every time, I'm going to make sure you have 2 packages of cards. Now, tell your son he can play with one of them, but leave the other one unopened. Right. So, of course, you know, I played with the cards. I traded them and flipped them and to my bicycle. But the other ones, they went on to the shelf in my closet. And this was for baseball cards, football cards, hockey cards, and basketball cards from like 1955 to like 1965.
And Beatle cards.
And Beatle cards. But these were all left unopened until I went away to college. And then when I came back from college, found out my mom decided to clean out the closet and threw away all my cards.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was a little perturbed, but you know what? I hadn't looked at those cards in years. You know what I mean?
You're a little more easygoing than I would have been.
Well, you know, to tell you the truth, like I said, back then they were just cards.
Right.
You know, they had no value.
Right.
You know, and I was like almost 20 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And you know, no big deal.
Yes,
Today,
but
today
you were already
those
working
cards,
for the Beatles.
today those cards would be worth thousands of dollars.
I just want to explain to you how crazy it is. And I have some of these things, which I'm not going to break open, but an unopened box of Topps Series 1 is on eBay currently for $26,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
amazing. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So it's
So you just want to make me. So you want to make me feel bad. Is that it?
I can't make you feel bad because I'm impressed. I'm impressed, man. So let's go on. Let's move on.
Look what I just found.
Okay. Yeah. All right, listen. Let's move on to Shea Stadium now. Your two Shea Stadium concerts.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. The first Shea Stadium concert was the first stadium concert ever, right? And the Beatles were totally ill-equipped to do a stadium show. They had 150-watt amps, and they didn't have a PA system. They had to use the ballpark's PA system, which was just used to announce what batter's coming up, right? So, and we had screaming girls, 55,000 kids screaming their heads off. You couldn't even hear the jet planes coming in to land at LaGuardia over that noise, let alone the Beatles.
Yeah. By the way, Richard and I, this past Friday, just went to the 60th anniversary of the night that Beatles played Shea Stadium. That's where he says we met. I saw him with his grandson. I took my family to, it was a Met game. Obviously, it's not at Shea Stadium anymore. It's at Citi Field, but they had a little celebration marking the 60th anniversary.
Same location.
Right, exactly.
Same location, yeah.
Yeah. So now that was the first time you went, but how did you get to go to the second time? What was that all about? And I know you told me the Ramones went to that one.
Yeah, well, two of the Ramones. I was up in summer camp. I was working as a dishwasher in a summer camp. And I wanted to go see the Beatles. So I hitchhiked from summer camp to the Red Apple Rest in Southfields. And I took a bus from Southfields down to Port Authority and then took the train from there to Shea Stadium. And I met Tommy and John from my band, the Tangerine Puppets, and we went in. We actually bought our tickets right there at the door. We didn't have advanced tickets, and the show wasn't sold out. In fact, there were 11,000 tickets unsold, and so we go in and we watch the opening acts, and then the Beatles come out, and John was carrying a backpack, and he opens his backpack, and he's got a backpack full of Stones. Now, of course, he's a Rolling Stones fan, so the Stones represented the Rolling Stones. And we were sitting on the third base side of the field, very close to the rail.
That's unbelievable.
Right
Thank
by
God he didn't do anything.
It was
Yeah.
right above the dugout. Right?
Yeah.
And when the Beatles came on, John started throwing stones at the Beatles, and they were pretty big stones, you know.
Now, at that point, John's last name is what?
Cummings.
And then he turns into
Johnny Ramone.
Johnny Ramone. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, and so Tommy and I are screaming at John, "Stop it! Somebody's going to get hurt," because John had an incredible arm. We used to play stickball, and he used to pitch so fast we couldn't hit him. And we could see from our seats the stones were bouncing off the stage.
Oh my God. And there were people in front of that stage. He could have hit him in the head.
Exactly. He could have hit one of the Beatles in the head.
Oh my God. Thank God nothing happened.
And people say to me, "How did the security guards let him get away
They
with
didn't
it?"
have security in those days like that.
I said they were too busy with all the girls fainting to
Yeah.
take care
Yeah.
of them.
Today, in those days, they didn't check people for things and stuff. You just came
No,
in.
he just came in.
Remember, everybody, there's no cell phones. Okay. If you brought a camera, which I did to the 66 concert, my father he brought his Polaroid. You should only know the roll was half used. I have like 4 pictures because you only get like 8 pictures on a roll, and he didn't bring another roll.
Amazing.
I have no pictures of me with at the concert. I have a couple of pictures of the stage from the very top looking down. So at that concert, by the way, I just want to show everybody. So this is the concert from 66. This is my program. Okay. And unlike Richard, Mikey saves things. So you got like a ticket stub here. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the program. And I remember John Lennon starting with rock and roll music.
Yeah.
66. I was at the very top, the worst seats. But the experience of hearing the noise and to hear the music. By the way, in that concert, the circle. Another thing I learned from you, that John Lennon was that group.
Well, yeah. He also he gave them the spelling.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah.
He gave them the spelling. I think Brian Epstein actually named the group the Circle.
Okay.
But spelled the regular way, and John Lennon changed the spelling on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And why did he do that? Just because
he could.
Yeah. So they were managed by Brian Epstein.
It's funny because remember he also changed the spelling of the Beatles.
Sure.
Right.
And that was a good move. Yeah.
It was a great move.
And by the way, another Forest Hills boy wrote their big hit, Red Rubber Ball, Paul Simon.
Paul Simon, right?
Which most people didn't know until more recently. But that was their big hit. And the Ronettes was there at that concert. I know that concert a little bit more only because I attended it. But that was, I wasn't there to hear these other groups.
Of course not.
These other groups were big. As a matter of fact, I want to jump to another concert that both you and I attended. You went on the earlier night, but I attended at Forest Hills, the Monkees.
Oh, wow.
With Jimi Hendrix. There's my ticket. This is my train ticket. Okay.
You're amazing. Look at that.
Yeah. And in your book, you said that the first show you saw, that was it for Jimmy. But
that was it.
No, but I actually went to the next night and he was still there. Okay. Because my ticket was
Forest Hills was his last show.
Oh, okay. So all 3 shows he did?
But that was his last show.
Yeah, I get it now.
He quit the tour after Forest Hills.
So I attended actually, you went on the 14th. I remember I looked in the book. I attended the 15th.
Good.
And my father, a year later, I would have known who Jimi Hendrix was, just 1 year later.
Sure.
But that 1 year difference, remember, I'm 67, I'm 12 years old. I was there for the Monkees.
Right.
And my father, I remember him saying, this guy is pretty good. This guitarist, I remember him. Like, he was different,
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was one of those that was not interested, in hearing him. Even though
that was the problem, that was the problem is that it was such a bad pairing,
right?
To have Jimi Hendrix being paired with the Monkees,
yes.
Because the Monkees fans had no interest in him whatsoever.
Right.
And in fact, he was too advanced musically for the Monkees audience.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I thought the Monkees performed pretty well, though.
They did.
And what was interesting, which had never been done at concerts before, you probably remember, they had film screens of the Monkees. I don't know if it was them playing live, but I do remember there was screens with images of the Monkees on them, maybe
from the TV
from
show.
the TV show or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was put together. The concert was put together. But I always think about what it would have been like in that small little stadium to see the Beatles like you did.
Amazing. Yeah.
Because that's a very small stadium.
What was it, about 12,000 people?
Yeah. And everybody, you should understand, this is the original stadium where kind of the U.S. Open was held.
Correct.
This is where it was really there to watch a tennis match. So the stage is being set up on a tennis court, essentially. And there's stands around. These are stands. They're not a big theater. And now they have concerts again there. They've had them for many years. As a matter of fact, Richard and I think I remember, I saw the Who when Who's Next came out. I saw the Who at Forest Hills. Your sound again is going off.
Forest Hills for the Who. You will remember this. It was a torrential downpour. It rained so hard that the entire crowd was soaking wet. And the Who didn't go on until the rain stopped. And Keith Moon came out with a broom and he swept the puddles off the stage.
I might have been at another night or a different year.
Maybe.
Because I don't remember that. That I would have remembered. I would have been like wimpy. I would have I don't want to get wet. Okay.
This was their tour in the 60s, so it was before.
No, mine was in the 70s when
Who's Next?
Yeah, Who's Next came out, and it had that Moog synthesizer or whatever synthesizer that would start the song, and then they did all the stuff. Yeah. But that was a great venue to see. I always regret not seeing Simon and Garfunkel. That's one group I never saw.
Right. They were great.
And you saw them, right?
At Forest Hills, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Now, let's talk about how somehow you transitioned into becoming like basically a guy that organized concerts. Like, somehow you got into that.
Well, when I went away to college, I had this whole thing that I told the Beatles about, and I was going to do it for myself also. So I found a student organization. I said, let's do some concerts. They said, wow, you can bring bands to Oklahoma. I said, yeah, I can do that. So I called up the Beach Boys agent, and I said, look, I have a 7,500 seat field house. I want to book the Beach Boys. And they said, can you get the field house on a certain date? And I said, I'll get back to you and I'll find out. And it was available. And they needed a date because they were in Chicago one night. And then like 2 nights later, they were in Dallas. They wanted a place to play between Chicago and Dallas. So they gave me a great deal. It was like $5,000 for the Beach Boys, And,
mechanically, how does it work? You have to give them a deposit, or
give them a deposit, 50% deposit,
right?
And then at the end, you give them the balance after they finish playing, and then you add up all the expenses, and you find out what the profit is, and then there's a split, 50-50 split on the profit. The band gets the 50% of the profit, and I get the other 50%.
And they trust you, or you give them an accounting? How did it work?
You got to have receipts. Okay. There's no trust in the music business.
But is it that night, or is it like
it's that night? It's that night.
Yep. Oh, really?
And there's no checks. It's all cash.
Cash, yeah. And there was no merchandise sales in those days, right?
No, none at
Right.
all.
That was the big money, but no one was doing it.
It was the big money for everybody but the Beatles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was like your first one, Beach Boys.
That was my first concert.
How
Yeah.
do you know? Like, how did you find the agent? Like, how do you know that you had? There's no Rolodex. No.
Yeah, people ask me that all the time, and I was very resourceful. So I called the record company, and I said to the record company, I want to book the Beach Boys. Who do I talk to? They gave me the number of the agent.
That's crazy. So you started with the Beach Boys, and then who'd you do next?
Well, I did the Beatles Magical Mystery Tour in Oklahoma, and then the next night in Texas, and that was like kind of my proof of concept, and that worked out great. I learned one thing though. Back in those days, when you get paid in cash, you got to carry that cash around with you.
It's dangerous.
Because banks closed at 3:00, right?
Yeah.
And on the weekends the banks weren't open, so you got to put the money in a case and carry it around with you. And hope.
Who was the representative who you paid for the Apple records for the Beatles? Who'd you end up paying? Like, how do you pay them the money?
No, I gave it to Nat Weiss.
Okay, but it's cash, or how does it work?
It's all cash.
Don't worry, the government ain't coming after you. Don't worry, it's
all cash.
Yeah,
all cash. So
Nat Weiss would meet you, or you go to the apartment, or what?
I go to his office.
Yeah. Crazy. So then you did extensive concerts all over the place. Just give an idea of what you. Oh, wait a minute. Let's do that, and then I got to talk about Woodstock. I'm losing you again. We're losing your sound.
So I basically started doing concerts. I had a theater up in Woodburn, New York, that we one summer we put Climax Blues Band in there, and Commander Cody, and I did Robert Klein and Lenny Schultz and a bunch of other music groups, and that worked out really well. And then I tried to do the New Riders of the Purple Sage in Albany. That didn't work out very well for me.
Why? What happened?
So we started selling tickets, and tickets weren't selling as well as I hoped they would. And I went up to Albany to find out what was going on. And they booked me on a TV show in Albany to talk about the concert. And while I was being interviewed, the guy who was interviewing me said, Emerson, Lake and Palmer are going to be there the same night as the New Riders.
Right.
And they were to be at the Pepsi Arena, and why the tickets weren't going so well, because everybody was going to see Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Okay.
So we canceled the concert, and my backers lost a lot of money, but that's history.
So when you say you had backers, you had people that helped you out.
The
operation.
I never used my own money to.
Another smart guy, a real businessman.
Everything I did was always other people's money.
Right.
Yeah, because I always felt the music business was like going to the track and putting money down on a horse. If the horse came in, you made money. If the horse didn't come in, you lost money. But in my case, I always made money because I would always charge a production fee.
Right.
So win, lose, or draw, I would make money.
So that was the deal. In other words, you got a certain amount for putting as a management fee for running the whole thing.
Correct. Yeah.
And then the other people that put up the money, they're the ones who participated in the profits.
In the profits, correct.
Right.
Well, so, they would participate with me. I would get like my production fee, plus a percentage of the profit.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Richard Adler, in his book, once again, I want to show people what the book looks like. This is what the book is. By the way, how can they buy this book, Richard? Where do they go?
They go to richardmartinadler.com.
richardmartinadler.com.
Right.
By the way, if you guys don't remember that, you can always go to Mikey Arugula at Gmail. Write to me, Mikey Arugula at Gmail, and I'll make sure I send you the link so I'll get you in touch with Richard. Now, of course, Mikey and everybody loves the Beatles, and that's what this is all about. However, once again, I say Richard is a 60s baby. He has in this book chronological group, the details of the Woodstock concert, which he attended, which I was fascinated with, because you talk about from the beginning to the end, the groups. Like, I'll just give you an example, and then you'll talk. I didn't know Richie Havens, because he had to keep playing, made up the song Freedom on the
Freedom,
spot.
yeah.
That was made up and improvised on the spot.
Yeah, he actually opened up the festival.
Right.
And he wasn't supposed to open up the festival, but because there was so much traffic, the artists couldn't get there. So they wanted to start the show. They asked Richie if he would start the show. And he started the show, and he played every song he knew.
Which is like 5
songs.
Yeah.
And they said, keep playing, keep playing.
Yeah.
So he made up a song.
But the thing is that if you saw the Woodstock movie, that's the song in the movie.
Yeah, that's the famous song.
And the thing that's wonderful about Richie Havens was in the movie, he has no teeth.
Right.
After Woodstock, and he made he got
some money, he got some teeth.
He got enough money to get himself some teeth.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, this guy had gums. Okay. So when he sang, he could only say the words a certain way because he had no teeth.
Yeah.
So tell us about your Woodstock experience, how it started, and what you want to tell us about Woodstock.
Well, the reason I went to Woodstock was because of Crosby, Stills and Nash. Their album had just come out, and I fell in love with it. And I wanted to see them live, and was the first opportunity I got to see them live. So I called my friend Kenny up, and I said, how would you like to go to Woodstock with me? He says, what do I want to go to Woodstock, New York for? I said, no, the Woodstock Festival in Bethel. So he said, yeah, I'll go with you. So he drove, and we heard that the New York State Thruway was closed because there was just so much traffic. So we went the back way, because we know that area really well, because every year we went to Boy Scout camp about a mile away from where that concert was held. So we went up the Delaware River all the way to 55 and cut over, and we get to the area where the site is, and Kenny pulls on the grass to talk to a cop, and he says to the cop, where can I park? And he says, you're parked, leave it there. Cars just all over the place, and we must have been about 2 miles away from the site. So the way you got around was you hopped on somebody's car, and you rode outside on the top of their car until you got to the road where the concert was, and then you walk from there up to the site. So we were going to buy tickets. So I'm looking for the ticket booth, and we're walking. We're just following the crowd, and all of a sudden, we see the stage, and we buy a ticket. We didn't know at the time that they took the fences down. It was a free concert, so it was like bewildering. It was like, how did we get here? But we figured, okay, we're here, let's go. And we walked up to the front, and took a seat. And we stayed up in the front for the entire concert for Friday night. And Friday night was folk night. So it was all folk acts. And I remember, I think Joan Baez closed the show and Richie Havens opened the show. And went back after the show was over. We went back to the Boy Scout camp because our friends were there, and we slept there instead of sleeping in the field with everybody.
How far was that? How far away?
What's that?
How far away was that? The Boy Scout
About a
camp?
mile. It's about a mile.
Not bad. So you walked a mile, right?
Yeah.
And
And we stayed there overnight. And then a bunch of my friends who were there came back with us the next day to see the Saturday show.
right.
And it rained. And the field turned to mud. And it was real sloppy. So sitting on the ground was a challenge, you know. So the rain stopped, but the field was so muddy. I climbed up a light tower, and I sat on the light tower, and I watched the concert from the light tower.
You're
Best
one
seat-
of those, huh? That
Best
was
seat in the house. Best seat in the house.
Now let me ask you something. Did you ever look at the movie to see if you could find yourself?
Yeah.
Can you see yourself?
Yes, and I also have a picture. I found.
Oh,
I
where's
looked-
that picture, man? Where is it?
I have it, but it's going to be in the book.
That's
It-
great.
It's not. I mean, it's a picture. It's kind of like a large picture. So I know that it's where I was
Right.
sitting.
Yeah.
I circled it.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I just bought a picture. I'm going to digress for a second. I bought a picture the other day from someone in Austria who has Beatles 66 concert pictures that no one has ever seen before. And it's Ringo facing the stadium, like from behind Ringo. And you could see everybody in the stands. And I know my father and I are in the picture. You know what I mean? Like we know where we are. It's just,
Right.
it's not clear, but it's like, I love that picture. I bought it because of the fact that I know that somewhere up there that's me and my dad, you know?
That's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you stayed, tell everybody the groups you saw and what made a big impression for you on Saturday and Sunday and then into Monday.
So, yeah. So some of the bands, I mean, the Who were incredible. I and the Family Stone was absolutely fantastic. They people were tired by the time they came on and running out of steam. But when they started playing, everybody just woke up and
So give them an idea of what time they came on. Like 3 a.m. or something?
It was about 3 a.m. Yeah. It was crazy.
This thing went all night.
Went all night. I mean, yeah. Remember the Jefferson Airplane were playing, and the Jefferson Airplane were playing at like 8:30 in the morning. You know, I remember the Who played songs from Tommy, and the sun was rising behind them while they were playing. It was absolutely amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And I also heard in your book, which I read about the Grateful Dead, how it was a bad performance and
probably the worst performance they ever did. And well, first of all, they were all
they were drugged out or what?
Drugged out on LSD, and so is Carlos Santana. Carlos Santana thought he had a lot of time before he had to go on, so they took LSD, and then they switched their schedule. And when he was at the height of his trip, he had to go on the stage. He said his guitar felt like a snake that he was playing, you know.
And that's the type of thing where Carlos Santana became famous because of Woodstock.
Nobody knew him.
No.
at the time. The only reason he got on there was because he was managed by Bill Graham, and Bill Graham said, you want my axe, you got to take Santana.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really launched Santana.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and but the Grateful Dead, they had a lot of technical problems because it had recently rained and everything was wet. Even the air was wet. It was so humid that they were getting shocked from their equipment.
Oh.
And then the equipment went dead, and they had to wait for them to restart the equipment again, and it was just a whole lot of problems, and it just wasn't a good show.
It's a miracle no one got electrocuted at that show.
It really was, because a lot of them got shocked. A
Yeah.
lot of them got shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you after Saturday night, you went back again, or you stayed overnight there?
No, we went back to the Boy Scout camp. Came back Sunday.
And when was Crosby, Stills and Nash on? What night was that?
I think it was Sunday.
Sunday?
Yeah.
And Neil Young came too, right?
Neil Young came out, yes.
Right.
It was absolutely amazing. I mean, their harmonies were flawless, and they put on a great show, and they did a lot of the songs from the first album.
Yeah.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
And they did Wooden Ships, and they did some Neil Young songs, right?
Yeah.
And just let's sum it up on Woodstock with Hendrix. So
I think Hendrix made a huge mistake. He wanted to close the show, but he had no idea that closing the show would be 8:30 in the morning, Monday morning. The concert was supposed to end on Sunday.
Yeah.
So by the time Hendrix came on, there were almost 500,000 people there for the concert. But by the time Hendrix came on, there were only 30,000 people left there because everybody had to go to work.
Well, get the hell out at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to be at work that day, and I just I didn't go. I just didn't show up. And
there was no way to tell anybody and call them.
No, they're not. No, not that time. Right. So I was so tired. I mean, it was an exhausting weekend, and I was falling asleep. And my friend Kenny woke me up and said, "Jimi Hendrix is coming on." And I said, "Let me sleep." He said, No, Hendrix is coming on. All right. So I got up, and Hendrix came on, and I started falling asleep again. Kenny would wake me up again. And then finally, Hendrix played the Star Spangled Banner, and that woke me up.
Where were you sitting? Because there was nobody there. You were up front, pretty much?
I was right by the stage, yeah.
Right.
I must have been 20 feet from the stage.
You must be in the movie then, man, at those scenes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You do it, so you say it like it's no big deal, man.
I was there.
I was there. If I could do that and I was there, I would be going watching the movie and cutting out like stills and posting them up somewhere.
When during Santana, on the director's cut, they had a picture of a video of me dancing.
Oh, come on. You gotta isolate those things and put them into the book. This book, I'm gonna bug you to change a couple of things in this book, man. Because this book is like, I want to turn it into a screenplay. All right. This book is something that deserves to be turned into a movie. I compare it to A Christmas Story, Gene Shepard's story about it's really not about Christmas. It's about
Right.
a young boy and growing up in a certain time,
Right.
right? With his dad and this contest and the winning the lamp. And okay, you know, your stories all come together. And, you know, what happens is, just to tell you guys quickly, because we're up to an hour and 20 minutes already, is that
Wow.
Richard, in managing bands, eventually has a partner falling out. I might be summarizing it wrong, but he meets a beautiful lady, okay, and realizes, like, you know, this thing, I guess, technology, all right, becoming IT. You
Yeah.
became an expert in IT, right?
Right. Yes.
And you phased out of the music business, and you meet this woman. You have a beautiful family, uh, you know, which is what everybody, not everybody, but you lived through all this, and now you maybe you want to say it your own way.
So what happened was I had my own talent agency called Somerset Talent, and I was the agent for the Herman's Hermits, and we were sitting around one day, and they said they want to put out a greatest hits album, but Mickey Most, their producer, wouldn't release the tapes to do a greatest hits. So I said to them, "Why don't we just go in the studio and re-record them?" And they said, "Well, that's going to take a lot of money." I said, "I'll back it." So I put up the money. I went over to England and I produced the album.
And in this case, your money.
Yeah, this was my money. Well, some of it was, not all of it. I got investors, but we were going to do back then. What was popular was TV packages where they sold records late at night on TV, right? So we're gonna put out a Herman's Hermits Greatest Hits TV package, and so I went to England and I recorded the album, and now I had to find a record company to put the album out, and I went to my friend Kenny and I told him that I got to find a record company. He says, "I know a guy who has a record company. Why don't I get you two together?" So he set something up. I go to Kenny's house, and guy from the record company was there, and we're talking and making a deal for Herman's Hermits. And then two girls walk in and sit down on the couch. Now I have my back to them because I'm talking to this guy, and this girl taps me on the shoulder and says, "You're being very rude. You have your back to me." And I said, "I'll be with you in a minute. We're talking business." So I finished up my conversation, made the deal that I needed, and I turned around and introduced myself, and I've been with her for 43 years.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what happened was, so in 1979, my wife was pregnant, and my agency wasn't doing great because we were very much into the rock and roll revival and a lot of doo-wop shows, and that kind of ran its course. And I really had to retool, and that was going to take a while. And so I decided that I'm going to go to school and learn computers. And I went to NYU for 6 weeks, took an intensive computer programming course. And at the end of the 6 weeks, my daughter had already been born. And the the teacher, when he dismissed the class for the last day, called 4 names and asked us to stay after the class. And he said, you're the only 4 people that got an A in my course. And he said, anybody who gets an A in my course gets an interview with this company and on Monday. So it was Friday, and Monday I had an interview with this company called Teachers Insurance, and they hired me right there on the spot.
Yeah.
And that was the end of my music business. And I was now into the IT
everybody,
business.
I want to explain to you the time that he's talking about. In 1980, something called the IBM PC came out. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And it used floppy disks, then the IBM AT. Okay. Apple started becoming a brand. All right. Which was started in the garage, by Steve Jobs.
Yep. And Steve Wozniak. Yep.
Timing for technology. I mean, Richard just happens to always be in the right place at the right time for some reason.
That's the name of the game,
Yeah. Yeah. Like to be able to say I got into becoming an IT person at the beginning of 1980. Of course, I had all the opportunities, but I didn't take advantage of them. I had a young guy that was working for me who was doing my IBM AT and everything. And he goes to me, the money is not in the hardware, it's in the software. He opens up the AT, goes, you see this thing called Microsoft? Okay, inside? You got to invest in that. Okay? Did I listen to him? No, I didn't. By the way, there's so many things that are all timing. I just learned the other day that how Starbucks started in Washington. Okay. They needed money. All right. Who did they go to? They went to Bill Gates's dad. Okay. Yeah. So Starbucks exists because of Microsoft.
That's right.
It's all who you know, the right connections. Richard made somehow the right connections at the right time. I just want to summarize some of the things we're not going to go over, but I want people to know why they should get this book. First of all, Richard was at Bangladesh. The early show or both shows?
No, the early show.
Me too. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I have my own story on how I got the tickets, but we're not going to do it on this show. Maybe we'll do another one.
All right.
He was the photographer at Bangladesh. He was a photographer 1-to-1. All right. He had direct communication with the Beatles. You broke into Hullabaloo, I remember, in your book, right? And you met the Yardbirds or whatever.
The Yardbirds and the Hollies, yeah.
The Hollies, and they gave you a guitar to play.
I had lunch with the Ronettes. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy has crazy stories. That's why I reached out to him a year ago. He's a very modest man. Me, I would be like talking about it all the time. I had to beg him basically to do this. Okay. All right. The only thing you're doing wrong is you don't wear your Mikey Arugula shirt, man. Okay?
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, listen, Richard, it's been a lot of fun. The reason why I'm stopping it is because it's going to be an hour and a half. All right.
Okay.
We can talk forever. But the thing is that you know how hard it is to get the people watch something for 90 minutes?
Sure.
All right. But Richard, it's been a blast talking to you. All right. Once again, this book, all right, Rock and Roll Fantasy. Richard, tell them how to get in touch with you again.
Yeah, it's Richard Martin Adler at, richardmartinadler.com.
Yeah. And or write to Mikey Arugula Gmail. And I would recommend this book. And by the way, I'm not getting anything out of this, okay? I'm not pushing this book because I'm involved. I'm letting you know you're going to enjoy the stories in here. The stories are crazy. I was trying to think of some other things. Oh, by the way, so Connie Deneuve, how do you say her name? Connie
Deneuve.
People don't know, but Richard will tell you in his book that when she was moving out of her office, he was moving in and he got her furniture, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now you don't have any of the contracts when you did all these like Chuck Berry and stuff. You don't have any of those contracts?
Oh, I actually cleaned out my basement and threw everything away.
When?
About 25 years ago.
Come on, man. Mikey would never do that. You're out of your mind. You know those contracts today would.
That's the difference between me and you, you know.
Yeah, but you had better stories than me.
You're a collector. I'm not.
Yeah, I know. Well, here's what you're a collector of. You have
Stories.
a family, grandchildren. You have a beautiful legacy. All right, but if it's up to Mikey, we're gonna make a movie. Okay, so with that in mind, everybody, I appreciate you watching. Hopefully, you enjoyed this. I think the stories that Richard told are incredible, and he's got a lot more stories in his book. So take care. All right, Richard, say goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. This was fun. I really.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.